Thursday, July 27th, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu sent the list of 28 ministerial nominees to the Senate, barely 24 hours to the deadline stipulated by the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution of Nigeria. The Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, submitted the list of the nominees to the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, describing the list as a mix of technocrats and politicians who have keyed into the vision and mission of President Bola Tinubu. The first batch of nominees include former governors, senators, economists, and politicians across all sectors, regardless of political affiliations. For instance, former governor of Rivers State, Nyesom Wike, a member of the opposition People's Democratic Party, and one of the aggrieved 5 governors of the party nicknamed G5 governors, made the list following his fallout with a candidate of his party, Atiku Abubakar, prior to the presidential poll. Indeed, President Tinubu has said in response to calls to set up a government of national unity that he would instead focus on competence by setting up a government of national competence. On Wednesday, just as the senators were concluding the screening of the first batch of 28, the president forwarded the list of the second batch consisting of 19 nominees.
I am pleased to forward to you the underlisted 19 ministerial nominees for confirmation by the Senate.
If the first list received some accolades, the reaction to the list forwarded on Wednesday has elicited some lukewarm reactions. In all, 7 women were on the list of 28, while a few women have also been included in the second list. One of the contending issues is the non-attachment of portfolios to the submitted list, giving room for speculations as to who gets what in the Tinubu cabinet. But there are more concerns, and among these is the heavy presence of politicians, especially those who just left one office without any sterling performance. Yet, the president had made so much promises, which will require the well-rounded team of young, vibrant professionals and technocrats, not politicians who not only carry excessive baggages of political IOUs, but play politics all the time. So, what expectations do we have of these nominees? More so, when we don't even know the direction the president is going. Senator Jimoh Ibrahim represents Ondo South Senatorial District. He's one of those who screened the nominees. He joins us today on Jigsaw.
All right, a very warm welcome to you to the program Jigsaw. My name is Gbenga Aruleba. Our guest is a distinguished Senator Jimoh Ibrahim. He's a senator representing the good people of Ondo South Senatorial District in the 10th Senate. He's an astute businessman as well. He's a businessman in politics, not a professional politician, so to say. Good to see you, distinguished. After all the appointments and the failures. Good to see you. Where do we start from? The screening?
I do where you like.
Okay, you got the second list yesterday.
Yes.
19 names on the list.
Yeah.
The first list contained 28 to altogether 47.
Yeah.
Isn't that too large? We don't have 47 ministries in the first place, and this is coming at a time where the global trend is to run a very compact government so that you spend less on overhead and have more to spend on development issues.
Yes, I agree with you, but unfortunately, there's a constitutional restriction which says you must take a minister from each of the states
of the
federation. There are 36 states in Nigeria that give you 36 ministers. If you take one from the Federal Capital Territory, that gives you 37 ministers.
Yeah.
And then you then have an extra 6 or so, which I think was selected from geopolitical zone. So from each of the southwest, southeast, northwest, northeast, north central, you are one to represent that region.
Yeah.
Well, that is the constitutional requirement as part of the 36. Extending from 37 including FCT, is just at the discretion of Mr. President. And you know, there are laws of political demand for political participation. And you want to run a participatory government, so obviously it should be all-inclusive, but that does not mean you should appoint 300 ministers or whatever. But I think...
Should it be about what you had put in during the campaigns, that you must necessarily be compensated for what you did during the campaigns? Because
no.
This is what this is turning out to be.
No. You see, in a civilized society, where you leave campaign, you are a national leader. So obviously, everybody is within your constituency, and they must participate in governance. So now the key point is that it's not about the fact that because you campaign for me, you spend money on me, you must give me ministerial portfolio. For example, I did campaign for Asuwaju Bola Tinubu Ahmed. I branded several cars, spent several millions of naira in my central district. But that does not mean that I expect from him to now compensate me by giving me...
Were you not directly campaigning for yourself at that time too?
Of course.
Because the two elections, took place the same day.
There was a case of a senator who got 4,000 votes for Tinubu in his senatorial district and got 47,000 for himself. How does the campaign happen? So we were campaigning for him, not necessarily because we were campaigning for ourselves. We could do that exclusively for ourselves and win. So if you look at the case of the senator who got 4,000 votes for Tinubu,
the presidential election,
and then got 47,000 for himself. In the same election, same day, same ballot paper. There you have to
that senator has questions to answer.
Not necessarily. It's just that you have to think deeply about legitimacy of acceptance of your candidature as president.
All right. So 47 is not too large a cabinet to have.
For 350 million people, depending on how you manage it, not extensively too large.
But the problem is we don't have 47 ministries. So it takes us back to the problem of ministers and ministers of state. And we've had arguments that ministers of state are not...
We overemphasize the importance of ministers. Ministers are just single-headed people to head the ministry to drive distillment of government policies. They are not really the bureaucrats that are doing the job. Minister or no minister, the work of the ministry will go on. Take Minister of Justice, for example. There is no Attorney General for Federation. Doesn't mean that Minister of Justice will not attend to cases pending in court. They will. So they are not the bureaucracy that run the ministry. They are just policy makers, to just disseminate what was discussed at council to the bureaucrat to proper understanding, and they will then distill the instrumentality of governance into those policies and roll them out. So it's not really, the minister has just been overemphasized in this country. If I ask you now, name 5 ministers in US, you probably don't know.
Probably beyond the Secretary of State.
Exactly.
Maybe Secretary of Defense.
Exactly. So you don't know. If I ask you to give me 5 names of ministers in UK, you probably don't know. So this is exactly what it looks like. It's not really that the ministry is not working or the government policy or government decisions or machinery has standstill because Minister A is not there. There is no any magic that a minister can really perform except the policies are straightforward because a lot center on the bureaucracy. And the bureaucracy is very important. And again, in terms of policy assessment and policy formation, you have to look at whether in this our situation in Nigeria, policy, are made from top to bottom. In other words, you have the policy made at the Executive Council, it goes straight down to the local government and the wards. But in a civilized society, policies are made from bottom to the top. Desire of the people are meant at the ward level and local government. It goes to the state and then move to the federal. So you see the distinction in these two. Ministers become very symbolic if the policy is top-bottom. Ministers become less noticed if the policy is bottom-up, as it is in the United States. And you remember, if I may cite this, Attorney General of U.S. once said to President Nixon, during the Watergate scandal, that Mr. President, we must prosecute, the former president or you next week. And then the president says, okay, if you cannot compromise on this, I will remove you. Another Attorney General was appointed. The Attorney General said, Mr. President, I'll study the file and go to court next week. If you don't want, I resign. So you have 3 Attorney General changing over a period of 1 month. So ministers are not really the central nucleus of the government. They are just presidential aides, and then they are supporting Mr. President to make sure he fulfill his electoral promises. But they are not the instrument that will carry, those things down. I remind me of what Lord Dennis says, if you can draw influence from this, that the corporation, the board of directors, is the head of the company by which the company ticks. The management is the hands of the company by which the company implements things. So the management is not the head of the company. There's a distinction between the head of the company and the hand of the company that implements the work. So obviously speaking, this distinction is fundamental, and we must look at that in this country. So we don't hang president's performance on selection of super being ministers because they can really do little or nothing.
I say a problem here,
Yeah.
which is what has happened over time with governments. The reason why governments fail.
Yeah.
We place emphasis on the political appointees, the ministers. But like you just observed now, the real people who will implement policies
are the
bureaucrats.
Yes.
And we don't pay attention to them. The last 8 years is completely different from the next 8 years.
Yes.
Even though under the same political party.
Yeah.
In terms of policy formulations, the thinking of the political heads. Isn't there a need, therefore, to place more emphasis on a kind of reforms of the bureaucrats, such that at the end of every tenure, a government, there's a kind of reprogramming to align with the new thinking of a new government?
The challenge here is that the last government, if we had to do the assessment,
Yes.
They are not very good in knowledge. They weren't coming with a knowledge-based economy.
That's the point.
So, and that makes the bureaucrat to hijack the government. So they become chief accounting officer of their various ministry and make the minister to cooperate or forget. So that's exactly what happened. And because Buhari was also a bit clueless about some of those fundamental economic development in contemporary times, and I'll give you an example. Niger Delta and the second Niger bridge, Buhari sacked, immediately he came in, Julius Berger. He said, this cannot be a private-led initiative. So he wants the project to return to government as a government-owned business, as it was done in classical economics. Now, he took over, and then he couldn't move forward. He couldn't progress after 2-3 years. He re-engaged Julius Berger again that he sacked. So then he said, go back to site, and then I will pay you. And then again, he couldn't succeed. He was oscillating between fear and courage. Fear that he doesn't know what he was doing. Courage that project seems to be happening. And you remember, Osibajo was on site several times.
Yeah.
The summary of it is that $4.5 billion have been spent. And then, of course, project is about 36% completed. Failed or abandoned project, you can say. And the last report was that people are going to site to steal the equipment there. Now, coming back to your argument, the bureaucrat has hijacked the government because they are proclaimed to be chief accounting officer. So if I'm a minister and I sign and I say, approve, I need the concurrence or the permanent secretary who can say, I cannot release money here because it doesn't go with our regulation. So this is a big challenge. And this politics comes up as soon as well. I just saw the ministers, and except clever ministers who can hold the permanent secretary to accountability and say, look, it must be done because it's a government policy. It will affect it. As what you wanted, for example, 17 billion to 70 companies. Okay, it goes to Ministry of Industry. Now, it's a executive order. Permanent secretary says, I haven't got really any installment to go on this. I'm not likely going to disburse because I'm the chief accounting officer. Minister runs back to the president and say, we want an executive order, no X, Y, Z, signed in order for us to implement. You go on and on and on. Central bank say, okay, it wasn't in the budget, it's a supplementary budget. We need to capture at National Assembly. Matter comes back to us again. We'll go forth and forth and say, why is it happening? So all of this time is running. I'm surprised that we're now in the 3rd month. Amazing. And this is, before you know it, Christmas is here, Happy New Year. The 4th year in government is not the year you can perform because you only have 3 years. And I was surprised when Buhari was saying the other time that, oh, I still have 3.5 years, I laughed. Where is the 3.5 years coming from? Before you formulate policy, before you distill the policy, before you implement policy. And where the strategy is not right, the style is not right, the engagement is not right, the pricing is not right, everything goes wrong. So you have to go back to strategy again. And that was strategy formulation. All must be involved. So the bureaucrats, civil servants, that hijack the government, whether you like it or not. So now the performance and the success of any government is determined on the legitimacy of acceptance of the civil servant. So I like the statement made by the president without necessarily, I'm not a spokesman. I'm just saying, picking from the statement that, oh, public servant, your salary is coming up. Maybe that made them excited, but are they really living on salary? That is where the challenge comes on.
So how do we tackle that challenge?
You have to do,
where can the legislature, for instance, be of assistance to the executive? Because we have a Bureau of Public Service Reforms, for instance, that ought to regularly, the moment you have a new government coming, regularly resynchronize the public service to align with the new policy direction of an incoming government.
You have to look at the first thing is the strategy right.
Okay.
What strategy are you putting in? The first question as well you must ask himself is what is the strategy here? Let's look at a simple elementary definition of strategy. Let's take Chandler, 1970. Strategy is the allocation of resources to an agreed course of action. So is it a resource-based strategy you want to use to run Nigeria? If a resource base, your GDP to revenue is 7%, meaning that 93% is used to service there. You don't have control over that. You have control over 7% of resources. So it simply means that you cannot use resource-based strategy because the resources are not there. If you go further to other variables, for example, cash ratio to GDP is 1.3%. So of economic size of about $500 billion, cash available is 1% of that. You go to pay salary, do road, construct, and all that. Again, you can't get it from resource-based strategy. You can't get it because there are still resources to address all those things. Then where is this resource going to come from if you are to create one? If you look at GDP to tax ratio, it's about 20%, meaning that you have avenue to still do about 80% charge. But the economic power of the people are poor, so you can't get tax from them. So obviously speaking, you need to think more. And I'm not in the television to tell you what to do because, of course, I didn't get the knowledge for free. I went to Cambridge for 6 years to do MBA and PhD. I went to Oxford for 2 years. I was in Harvard for 1.5 years. I won't call the television and just
give free information.
No. Even at the Senate, you have the Senate president, I rarely raise up my hand because I will do that when I'm well appreciated.
I had to do a great service to the fatherland.
Did you pay my school fees? You didn't. So if you don't...
Service to fatherland is what I'm talking about.
Am I not serving to fatherland? I was confirmed with CFR, Commander of Order of the Federal Republic.
Yeah, that should be enough motivation for you.
After I've employed 18,000 human beings, do you think I can just be pushed aside? 18,000. How many Nigerians has at one time paid salary of 18,000 human beings? You have to commend people and give it to them, whether you like it or not. You don't appreciate me here, they appreciate me in Dubai, they appreciate me in the UK. So overstatement because I have investment in UK.
Yeah, but you campaign for this. You campaign for this president.
I'm doing that.
You campaign for him to become president.
Have you ever seen me against him?
And Tinubu campaigned to be president because he has a dream to improve things.
If you are
in a position to help him, but you said unless
I'm not saying I'm not going to help, but I understand one thing. I'm saying you have to appreciate me. You don't expect me.
You already have national honors.
Yes.
2, actually.
Yes, OFR and CFR.
CFR.
Yes.
That's probably the highest.
But that doesn't tell you to say good television and be giving solution out for free without any appreciation beyond that. I was given national honor because I employ one of the highest. In fact, Jonathan promised to give me a GCON because I told him the man you give GCON to doesn't employ as much as I employ. And he said, yeah, sorry, you get the CFR. Next time we look at it. But that doesn't matter. I have 9 university degrees. That's probably more than CFR. So the key point is that the point I'm making here is that you need knowledgeable people. You need to form a cabinet, and of course the people that the president brought, some of them have first class. Adelabu made first, Yemi Edu made 2-1, and like that. So obviously there are few of them there, but you need to have them a majority. Government policy must be in the days of innovation. And we'll talk about destructive innovation. When I mean destructive innovation, I don't mean destruction. I mean, for example, if you take
change the paradigm shift.
Exactly.
Have a paradigm
so if you have your Samsung, we have Samsung 1 and Samsung double face. So the Samsung double face is a destructive innovation to Samsung 1. Just like you have your iPhone 2, iPhone 10 is a destructive innovation to iPhone 9. iPhone 9 is a destructive innovation to iPhone 7. Now, incremental innovation. Government have to come with the knowledge of this innovative adventure. Unless that happens. For example, you have 11,886 abandoned federal government projects.
11,000?
Yes, mega projects. 11,886 abandoned federal government projects. Just three of those projects it's about 60% of national debt.
Whoa.
That's a fantastic information. I did that for 4 years in Cambridge, my PhD. I got the list of 11,886 abandoned projects. Now, 3 of those projects is 60% of national debt. Now, take the 3. You mentioned one brilliantly, Ajaokuta. We spent $6 billion in Ajaokuta. We are on site for 42 years. We have not produced one single iron rod. And you are still putting more money on the project. Don't you need innovation? Don't you need strategic engagement? Don't you need thinking outside the box to be able to drive this thing to success? Yes, Aswaju is my very good ally. I love him. He also appreciates me. But we discuss these issues. But what I'm saying is that if a president sits and he's not talking about completing the abandoned project that are still of national importance, the president cannot succeed.
You know what I'm going to do to you, distinguished?
Yes.
You know what I'm going to do
what
to
I'm
you?
going to do, Gbenga?
Okay, let me just tell you what I'm going to do to you right now.
Yes.
Because here on this program, we think Nigeria first.
Yes.
So what I'm going to do to you is to report it to the president right now. That here is a man who can help out to fix the problems of Nigeria, but he's making demands.
Yes.
So how the president is going to contact you and meet your demands
the last meeting,
will be between the two of you.
The last meeting I had with Mr. President, I told him, so that I can say more. And he was just laughing. The real thing, honestly, let's be honest with ourselves. Look at the National Library. You have spent 386 billion naira on National Library. It's at 4th floor. The project is 26 years old. You go to 13 floors. We used 18 years to build 4 floors. And we spent 386 billion. Now, do you need a national library of 13th floor in a contemporary time? You see, one thing that
in other countries, libraries are in small cities.
Fantastic. So if you want to use 386 billion, why not you can even have 36 libraries in each of the states of the federation, and 360 billion, we complete those fantastic libraries, but you have one in Abuja at 4th floor. I interviewed Jonathan, I went to him. Why is it that you didn't complete the last floor? When I was doing my PhD, I said, I was collecting data. So I went to him. And he said, Jim, when I came to office, I asked him to bring the file. Of a truth, as a PhD holder, Jonathan, was concerned about National Library. So he asked me to bring the file. They brought the file. And then he said, okay, you know what? I don't want to hear explanation. Go and roof the library at the 4th floor. Let us start using it now. So they said, thank you, sir. They went back. They brought an estimate to Jonathan that is more than building into 30th floor. Jonathan said, my hands are off. Take your file away. The library stayed there. When Buhari came, I went to him. I said, I saw a memo in Minister of Finance demanding for 96 billion naira. Are you signing it for the National Library? Because I collected out of data. And he told me that, the challenge I have here is that I can't sign it. And then because the contractor is demanding for payment of abandoned equipment on site for 18 years, which is about 96 billion naira. So how do you go on? If you award to another contractor, the first contractor go to court and then say this is a clause in the contract that say if you default in your payment arrears to me, I am going to charge for the equipment until you re-engage the contract. So the court will say what? Pay him. Pay him for what? So who put these clauses there? Who run this company? I went to President Obasanjo. I said, sir, when you were in office, you initiated the National Library, fantastic idea, under the National Library Act 1960, and you also initiated Presidential Library for yourself. Yours,
the Presidential Library was completed.
Yours hasn't been completed, despite the fact that we have national resources. And he told me, maybe we don't know the objective for what our National Library was to achieve. I asked what objective
what it was beyond
the Library Act. But I cannot blame him, because he explained to me that the engagement here has become more converging of complexities around the Nigerian nation itself. So a president that will make impacts must come out with knowledge-based, distillment of the economy. In these days, you need knowledge. You don't just go and say, because you always appoint Minister of Finance, what about Minister of Revenue? You are interested in the income coming in.
You are not interested in how to generate it.
You are interested in how to keep, even the one you generate, you are saying, inland revenue will do it. Are we not in a contemporary time where inland revenue ought to have been upgraded to Minister of Finance, Minister of Revenue? This is one solution you want to bring out for free now. Okay, I brought that out of the car for free.
And I'm sure the president has captured that already.
So if you have Minister of Finance that come to tell you, here is the budget, here is the, what we are spending on, and then here is the approval list, and you keep approving all those things for Ministry of Finance, wouldn't you ask your Revenue Minister, what do you have in the Treasury for us? Have you seen a company, a serious company that has an over 5 billion, that does not have a treasurer? Who is the treasurer of Nigeria? Tell me, is it the Accountant General of the Federation who balance the book, that perform the function of treasury at the same time? How can a nation be in the system of 1960 to the present day and it doesn't have a treasurer? So this is one area where knowledge gap, become engaged. But if you go to the classical economics theory, they will tell you, Minister of Finance, what is the revenue? Minister of Finance, how much did you spend on that project? Minister of Finance, what's the budget allocation? Is Minister of Finance a robot?
Distinguished, you truly have a lot to offer, and I just hope that some people somewhere are following and tracking this up.
Yeah, that is the only thing I can do. You can track this up at this national discussion, not necessarily by calling me to come and sit me down, because sitting me down will cost you money.
To pick your brain.
We did a consultancy for a country in the Gulf. We helped them raise money from China Exim Bank for their electricity, $30 million. We charge 10% of that money. Wow. So you see, the engagement took us less than maybe 6 months. They got the drawdown. Now we charge for it. We cannot say we didn't take this. I'm not the only one that will do that. In mega project, that's why I saw the mega project in Oxford. So we have consultants that will gather together to make sure that project succeeds. And I'm not soliciting for job. I have enough on my template. I have so much job that can be. In fact, coming to the Senate is a service to make sure that my people are not completely forgotten. For example, we have bitumen in our area. Our bitumen is second largest deposit in the entire world after Canada. You left it untapped. And then you are talking about price of oil. Buhari was crying, I'm so unlucky that during my time, the price of oil
when the alternatives to that
where you have bitumen, flowing like water in Agbabu, in Oderele, in Igbotako. Bitumen are flowing like water there. You don't do extraction. That is why I brought the bitumen bill to the National Assembly within few days of my coming there. We done the first reading and we are moving to the second reading of the bill to make sure that President knows that we need to have Bitumen Development Commission. We need to also make it independent, not that government will be funding it. We have to make sure that every bitumen you exploited outside Nigeria, you hold retain 1% of the fund as a commission to run your commission, and then Nigeria makes money. Without that legal institutional framework and backing, there is no way you can access funding from external institutional financial institution to make sure that the bitumen works. But you need to have a commission first in place before you talk about extraction. Now, these are alternative revenue sitting down there, sleeping on top. And this is where the national benefit, the benefit of the nation is hiding, and we need to do something about that.
That reminds me, let me just quickly look for it where I put it. I thought that during campaigns, President Tinubu actually promised a national infrastructure company under which government hopes to hire millions of unemployed Nigerians.
Well, I don't know how many promises he made.
I tracked this one.
I am not. But if it's true that
he made that promise.
Yeah, it can create something auxiliary to that. Infrastructural company, where you have 11,886 projects abandoned, I think you have to do an audit of those abandoned projects. You have to come up and create more or less presidential commission on abandoned projects. That if you do that one, it's better than this one you are talking about, so that they can, if it is only 5 projects, you can bring out of the abandoned projects, you can bring back to life. History will never forget you. For example, Ajakuta, let's go to it. The implication of Ajakuta being abandoned. 25% of budget sum, your budget in a year, 25% of your budget is used for importation of iron. Now, that gives constraint to your dollar. And the population is growing. We're about 350 million people now. The youth want to build their houses. Now, every house you build, 30% is about iron components. Now, the demand for iron will continue to increase, isn't it? Ajakuta is abandoned. 25% of your budget is used for importation of iron. Meanwhile, 60% is for servicing debt. What is left that you want to use to satisfy some of these electoral promises? Unless you open the Paradona box and then look at knowledge-based innovation, incremental innovation in revenue, in strategy. You must get the strategy right. You know, the strategy must be all encompassing. And we are seeing here some challenges about resource-based strategy. That we don't have the resources in which the strategy can be, fomented now. Course of actions can be generated. So what we need to do is simple, is to see how can we get resources. Now, we can't tax people because they are already stressed. Yeah. So you cannot get one kobo tax from them. And over 50% of the companies in operation during Buhari had disappeared. You know, you can see people like Aliko Dangote diversify their company abroad. I have diversified abroad. I have like 25% of my worth in Nigeria. People run away because the government was not friendly with indigenous investors. If for anything, Buhari doesn't even like, contemporary glories. He really wants to stay on his classic adventure of the yesterday militarism. And that was very, very...
That's harsh.
But we show it to him.
That's harsh.
I know, not harsh. It's my friend. I show him very clearly that. I said a test to Buhari at the time. I said, sir, as of today, it's now 2 years you are in government. You have used your EFCs to trace so many of the criminals. Have they reported me to you in one single case? That is to show you that I keep my integrity. That's to show you I'm a man of honor. And you should be proud of our friendship. I don't need appointment. I never go to other whatever. But the key point I'm making here is that if you don't respect your entrepreneurs, you don't hold them very well, they will go to other countries. And in a contemporary time, other countries are looking for this entrepreneur. They give you, in Dubai, they give me golden visa, 10 years. Golden card, gold card for 10 years. They give all my children. So what do you want to do now? In Britain, they give, I was the only one that accepted that told them I don't want a British passport. Every member of my family have British passport. Only me. I said, I'm a Nigerian, I want to keep my green passport. Now, if they have all of this, do you have an alternative? Do I move? Dangote probably identified to about 15 countries. He has a choice. If you bully him here, he moves to the other country. So we are in a globalized world. You know, we are in a global where globalization is taking the tide of the economy. One president has done that very well in Nigeria. We must commend him. Is Obasanjo. Obasanjo will eat with the entrepreneurs. We call the first 20, have dinner, do everything, like taking us like babies. And we keep getting encouraged and doing more investment. But the moment Buhari came and was draconian with entrepreneurs and said few people destroyed this country and was going around everybody, whether you commit offense or not, different agencies were coming to your company. Then we felt, let's diversify our investment out of Nigeria. And the amount diverted, that diversify is huge. We have a bank in Ghana, we have a bank in Sao Tome. Should that be? If the two banks combine together, can't it be a bank in Nigeria that employ hundreds of thousands of people?
But you have a different environment now.
You have a different... That's good thing. As well, you have started with a fantastic environment where it's not ready to hunt business people. And I think must have learned its lesson from what Buhari did. Now, with that one, we will divest from those countries and bring investment back home. And then we'll be fine.
Okay. That being the case, what does it take to fix Ajaokuta? I mean, this shouldn't be rocket science. Okay. Obasanjo tried severally, toyed with so many ideas, brought back the Russians at the point of signing agreement. Something happened again. He said no, decided to, I think, privatize and all of that. Okay. What really do we need to do? Because we were told that at some point, this company was just almost, less than 10% ready.
Okay, Gbenga, I did my PhD in Cambridge on this, on the Badon project. I'm not the first person to graduate on that program, till today. Now, Ajaokuta was one. And my article on Ajaokuta has been published by Harvard Business Review. So I know much about this company. Where we got it wrong is the EPI, Environmental Impact Analysis, was 70% negative. So the question I will ask Obasanjo is, sir, you got the EPI report before you set up Ajaokuta. It tells you it's 70% negative. You still went ahead and decided there. Now, what were the issues in EPI? Iron oil is used to drive production of steel. Now, we have iron oil in Itakpe. Yes. Okay, in Itakpe, where you have, it's 30% maximum deposit you can get there. That means that even if Ajaokuta was in operation, it could be a liability in the sense that we have to import 70%
of the raw material.
Now, when you don't have iron oil, it means the price of iron oil is determined by dollar price. Now, there's a challenge there. And iron oil is the fuel that drives the steel construction. That's one. Then, secondly, which is very important, is the fact that when you eventually produce the iron, you need to have River Niger to get a conveyor belt from the factory to River Niger to drop the iron there, where you load them in ship. Because you cannot load them in trailer. There's no even road. And the iron are so big, you have to use tray or you use
there's a tray
that tray that you construct there, you just constructed there. Now the key point is you have to dredge River Niger constantly so that the seal can have access because of the draft of that seal. That is a huge expenses to be done regularly. You could look for a naturally acceptable or friendly depth to be able to know that ship can come here, load and offload easily. Because the cost of dredging is something you cannot account for. So this month, you go and dredge. 6 months after the rainy season, the sand has returned, you go and dredge. And when you look at it from a navigator, you cannot navigate the water with your ship if the depth is up to the level that you wanted. So when you produce, how do you take the final product? How do you take it to Port Harcourt? Are you going to load it with trailer and take it there? Now, coming to your question, how do we get it back?
How do we get out of the problem?
Now, you have to take between two options.
How do we break those two?
Yes, I can tell you, you have the two options. One, when I go to Ajakuta, I met with Mr. General, and I had a meeting with entire management during my data collection process. And I asked them a question. How much does it cost that if Buhari give you this money today, you will deliver Ajakuta in 1 year? They said $400 million. So I put it down. $400 million. So, and I sought to see Buhari to tell him that if you give them $400 million in Ajakuta, you will save 25% of your budgetary monetary allocation, and then you can then flag off Ajakuta as quickly as possible. Now, in the evening, when I was preparing my report, so that I can share with Buhari before I go back to Cambridge, then they phoned me again. The Mr. General phoned me from Ajakuta and said, oh, sorry, sir, it is 1.6 billion, not $400 million. I wrote that one down. Then I asked him, for which phase? He said, for phase 1. How many phases do you have? I said, they have 4 phases. So phase 1 will take 1.6 billion. Now, when I got to Cambridge, I sat the faculty down, and I said, I need to use university integrity here. So I told the Vice Chancellor, they need to write a letter on my behalf to 10 steel major companies and say, how much does it cost to produce 2.something million tonnage of iron a day in a green field in Africa, particularly in Nigeria? We want a quote. We are not giving contract, but because it's coming from Cambridge, they love to do that quote for free. A green field at Ajakuta will cost $1.2 billion. A system at Ajakuta to repair will cost $2.2 billion, and you are not sure it will be repaired. So this is where the real problem lies. So the president must take an option between spending $2.2 billion to repair Ajakuta. Note very well, EPI says 30% of iron ore is what you can get from Itakpe. So, and then you are going to do dredging on River Niger, and you're going to do your rail to make sure that product gets into that oil conveyor belt. Plus 2.6 billion, you get Ajakuta neatly on. Now, if you want a brand new project, then you need to talk about 1.2 billion to start a greenfield. Now, I went to Babangida. See, I did extensive research in this area. It's not a joke. So I went to Babangida, I flew to him, and I asked him, sir, hey, you are president, what did you do with Ajakuta? And he told me, Ibrahim, did you go to the admin building? I said, yes, I was there. When I entered the admin building of Ajakuta, it's as if you are in United Nations. The furniture, everything there, it's as if you are in UN. Now, he said, I built that, the admin building, I commissioned it. The technical area, they are converge in the complexity of bribe demand from Shagari government, which I'm clueless about, from Obasanjo to Shagari. Then I went back to Obasanjo, what happened, Baba? The Baba told me clearly that when he left, he retired total. And the Ajakuta contractor came to meet him and said, look, you have not retired because the contractor in Shagari were asking for bribe. For contract we have done, so therefore we didn't have that as part of our estimates. And we are going to leave Nigeria. Then I said, okay, Baba, I understand all this argument. Now, when you came back second time as president of Nigeria, what did you do to fix Ajakuta? You saw your child. Look at it dying. What did you do? He said, when I came back, in 30 days, I took a flight to go and meet the company in Russia. And I got in there and I told them, I want to give you a blank check, complete Ajakuta. And they said, Shegun, even if you give us beyond blank check, we will not return back to site. Then he said, what can he do? He went to Ukraine to look for alternative contractor on the same flight. So he got to Ukraine, he asked another contractor can do Ajakuta. He said, come and do Ajakuta for me. I give you a blank check on our crude oil. Then the contractor said, Shegun, sorry, we have association. In our association, we are blacklisted at Ajakuta. Don't bother traveling to another contractor for there. Because no contractor doing steel will ever come to Ajakuta. It's our agreement. So he said he rested his case. So when he came back, he started the privatization sending them in components and all that. And then the people that bought it, maybe they don't understand what they are doing. Because if you don't buy iron oil company, you don't buy you don't right over the sea, and you bought Ajakuta yourself.
You just bought a
how will you then, how do you then operate it? So the key point now is that we are looking for a solution from Aswaju. I have some interesting solution which I will send to him, free of charge, and
free of charge now.
So if the company can go into it, because I'm worried that the variables that impact on performance of any president and the economy of Nigeria are very weak as at this time. And if they are weak as a president, you have to activate them. It is when variables are activated that you can make impact. If variables are not activated, no matter how scholarship you are, you cannot make any impact. So the real solution is to start from the weak variables.
Distinguished, thank you so much. I'm happy that I got two out of your share to give out this much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's hope I'll be able to get to speak more on the other issues.
Clever reporter.
Let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Thank you very much.
Right.
Did you know that AIT's social media handles have all changed? If you are one of the millions of our followers on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, this is introducing to you AIT's new official and rebranded social media handles. Like or follow us now on our Facebook page, Official AIT Live. If you're on Twitter, switch to our new handle at Official AIT Live and activate the notification button to get breaking news and updates on the go. For exclusive short videos and photo news, follow our Instagram account at Official AIT Live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, Official AIT Live, and enjoy live streaming of news and your favorite programs, where you can also watch our broadcast materials at your own convenience. Note that Official AIT Live is the only authentic social media profile name with all the handles on our website ait.live, with a notification prompt to accept and receive breaking news and updates on the go. Log on to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube platforms on your smartphone, tablet device, laptop, and desktop to follow us now. AIT.live. On air, online.
All right, the program is Jigsaw, and our guest today is Distinguished Senator Jimoh Ibrahim. The Distinguished Senator represents Ondo South Senatorial District in the 10th Senate. And, of course, it's been an interesting session here. Distinguished, no doubt, the management of the economy is the greatest, the hugest challenge that President Tinubu inherited. The figures were not looking right when he took over. Unemployment had gone up to 41%. Inflation had gone up to 22.79%. Interest rate had gone up to 18.75%. Public debt stood at 49.85 trillion naira. I could go on and on and on. Those variables, you made allusion to them.
Yes. The key point here is S causes Y. Simple arithmetic. Now, if we take care of X, Y will behave very fine. That's what we usually tell the MSc students when you talk about recharge methodology. Then we could have X1, X2, X3, X4 causes Y. What analogy am I making here? That the variables impact on the economy. And once the variables are right, the economy will be right. So what are these key four variables? Let's start with that. That is the X1, 2, 3, and 4 that impact on the economy. Now, what is the degree of their impartation? We have to identify that. Now, let's take, for example, GDP to revenue, 1.3%. This is one of the worst in the world. So you took over an economy that had 1.3% element of cash to its total value. The total GDP is some total of buy and selling activities that happen in an economy in a given year. Yeah. And that is what we used to know the size of the economy. Our GDP is about, say, $500 billion. Now, this GDP, right, the cash element available is 1% of that amount of money. Is that right? The economy will be better if there is more cash components in the $500 billion. So if the cash element is say 30%, you can do many things.
So how does the president hope to grow the GDP by double digits as a promise?
Yeah, well, that can happen.
Okay.
There are lots of things you can do. For example, when you talk about revenue to GDP, poor at 1.3%. Now, debt to GDP, fantastic, 30%. That means we have an opportunity for 70% to borrow money. Now, the borrower, the lender will not give us money because it's looking at the signal from revenue to GDP, which is 7%, indicating that if I borrow this guy money, the chances of paying back is zero because they only have 7% of their cash available. But not as very critically worried that government cannot perform. For example, in UK, debt to revenue, to GDP is 100%, meaning that UK doesn't have any room to borrow any money in the world because they are borrowed to the capacity full of their economy. So what do you expect? The pound sterling will be falling against the dollar. And that's a very clever people will pick that and make money from that. I shouldn't have laid that out. Now, because if the British government cannot borrow money to satisfy social engagement, then they will tax more, inflation will be more, price of houses will come down, they cannot do social services, and that creates a problem to them. That's the problem they're having in England today, and that's why they said they are in recession, and very difficult to manage. In Nigeria, it's not as bad as that. Our debt ratio to GDP is 30%, meaning we have 70% opportunity to borrow money. Yeah. So what we need to do is to say to the lender, borrow us huge money. Our debt is about $100 billion. So let's be looking at about $500 billion to borrow here on a big basket of 50 years repayment program. And with a 10-year moratorium period. Now on these 50 years, 10 years moratorium period, we come back home and find out where did we get it wrong. But imagine an economy that has $400 billion in reserve to back up the naira. The dollar will come down against the naira. Because there's so much we have in the dollar that whatever you demand for, we can meet your demand. And of course, excess dollar against the naira will make the price to come down. Now, in borrowing this, it's not something that Minister of Finance will run to Exim Bank or run to IMF. That is not where to go. Our borrowing capacity to China is 5%. Not bad. So what we can do simply is to engage 20, 30 Exim banks and do syndicated loan for these 50 years. 20 Exim banks will probably put 10 billion to the table. 20, we have 340 Exim banks in the world. So engage 20, Mr. President have a dinner with them in New York, or the 20 selected one, cannot be a problem. We have a syndicated loan, we have indicative offer, we tell the creditor, come, we want to reconcile our account, we want to pay down. You tell the lender, I am paying you from this loan you are giving me, I'm paying my creditor $100 million out of it. They will give you 30% discount on this what you are paying. So you gain 30 billion this way. Then you are paying 70 billion out. Now you have 60 years, 50 years to pay back. You have a 10-year moratorium. Tell yourself what do you want to do with this huge amount that is around. You fix the economy. And that's how to go about it. If you are still arguing, I will not borrow, you are wasting your time. Because your revenue to GDP is 7%. You don't have a say in this. You just have to take advantage of your GDP to debt ratio. To capture the deficiency in your revenue to GDP.
I learned this from my colleague, Nancy Naji. Yeah. Is there any big elephant in the room that can make this not to work?
Nobody can make it not to work. If the president wants to do it, he engage the right...
Like the Exim banks, if they say, the Nigerian environment is not...
No. You are borrowing for 50 years. Nobody can even do non and unknown risk is what we want to know. What is the non-risk? What is your non-risk? There's a risk that oil may disappear. Bitumen have been substituted for oil. We are now exporting bitumen.
And we have gas. We have gas too.
That is there. So we have AI, artificial intelligence, that we also develop. We have innovative science and technology can come up with their own innovative adventure. We have cocoa. Why can't the president buy up all the cocoa in West African lines and set up a cocoa company here and become second largest producer of cocoa in the world? Tell me what is the lane? $100 million will do that. Call Ghana. Call South Tome.
Bring all your cocoa.
All your cocoa.
Bring
Nigeria cocoa company in Lagos or wherever it is will buy all this cocoa from you. So you then
in the next time, put it close to you in Ile-Oluju.
in the next line, you just have to say that in the last 10 years you then plant cocoa cities that you can you can then grow your own. But the first 10 years you are buying up all the cocoa, isn't Ghana owing us money? We can then even say we buy this cocoa in deviance of our debt. Isn't all this West African country owing us? So get the cocoa here, rebag here. Ghana now is second largest producer of cocoa. With less capacity. The entire cocoa produced by Ghana is all the ones produced by my people in LUG, in Okebo. So you can get some of these things fixed up. It depends on, like I said, it's a knowledge-based thing. It's not something you can use your degree of 30 years or 25 years to do. No. They are modern degrees. They are exposure to contemporary literature. They are exposure to contemporary knowledge. You cannot just say because I'm a professor of 20 years, it gives me the audacity to say that I can fix the economy. No, we need this modern knowledge to be able to get things.
All right, a quick word here, distinguished. Among these 47 ministerial nominees, I've seen a couple of names, people that you would like to call disruptors, who can actually join hands and think in this direction that you are thinking.
All of them are good. I'm not condemning anybody, mind you. I'm only proud of myself. I'm proud of myself.
I'm only saying that if there's anything at all, well, there shouldn't be shortage of brains.
There might be.
Oh, really?
Because you have to know where you get your certificate from.
Okay.
Yes. I went to Ife. Ife is a very proud university. But Ife is not Harvard. It's not Oxford. It's not Cambridge. The amount of resources that University of Cambridge, distill to knowledge is up in a year. It's more than 20 years budget of Ife, if not 50-year budget of Ife. Professors are there that are very sound in Ife. But if they don't have the modern equipment and then access to modern knowledge, what do you think they want to teach you that can really make a difference? So it's not about gathering 1 million people, 100 people. It's about who are these people that have contemporary knowledge that matters in management of economy. For example, I'm the first human being in Africa to have PhD in mega projects. Mention another person that have it in Africa. So you cannot just come to tell me that my knowledge of mega project is nonsense. No. When I consult for various countries, and I'm not looking for a job, I'm also looking for how Nigeria can be better. If I go to my state in future and I become the governor of my state, I'll put all my knowledge down to my state to develop.
All right. Now that you mentioned that, I will also take you there. But before we get there, let's leave the economy quickly there.
Yes.
Because I
was looking at, I just took 2 variables. And then you have to identify those 4 variables that impact negatively on the economy. Okay. It's like when you are sick, Gbenga, you have malaria. You think you have malaria.
Now
you go to the doctor. You go to the doctor.
Yes.
And then the doctor says, Gbenga, I'm not touching you. Go and go to the laboratory and do your test. That's a brainer doctor. What is he looking for? He look at the variables that make you to be weak. So he sees that you are sneezing, sneezing is there, cold is there, coughing is there. Now he sees that, there is a bacterial infection. So he says, okay, I'm recommending for you to take antibacterial drug, and then and omega-3 that build your white cells, then he said take 2-3 a day. But you can see headache. He didn't give you fensic. He believed that if the bacterial infection, which is more than 0.7,
is overpowered,
it's removed, your headache will automatically go. So there are also variables in the economy. You list them out. Variable 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that are significant. If they are the one affecting the economy, to make the economy to be sick like this, then let us look at the level of impact. Then let us work on those variables and take them off. Then you see that the economy will be.
Let me leave the foreign policy direction for last, in case I don't have time for that. Let's go to every politics is local.
You better go there. I won't talk much on
Ondo.
Yes.
You won't talk much.
I won't talk much.
Okay. All right. Foreign policy then.
Yes.
We are carrying a very heavy burden at home.
Yes.
But we are looking for foreign problems to add to it. Nigeria's leadership role in the ECOWAS sub-region and the problems we are having in the sub-region now. Niger is in turmoil. Burkina Faso, Mali are potential trouble spots. What should be our foreign policy, particularly starting from the West Africa?
We cannot go against United Nations conventions.
Okay.
Article 2.4 of the UN says that prevent the use of force. We can't do intervention by using force. That is not acceptable in international palace. And if US lodge into it, they only want to destroy the economy. Intervention based on use of force is negation of Article 2.4 of the United Nations Convention. Okay. Article 2.7 of the same UN Charter says you cannot interfere in the domestic affairs of another country because nations are equal. But if there's a threat to international security, you can prevent and punish, those who are involved. Article 51 of the United Nations Convention. But again, at what stage you can do sanction? The preliminary stage to intervention, because you cannot do direct intervention, you can bring sanction, economic sanction, military sanction, educational sanction, and you want to know whether those sanctions will work. If the sanctions are not working, then you go to intervention, but intervention cannot happen because you are not permitted under the UN.
Bottom line, we should tread carefully on Niger.
Very, very carefully. Okay. It can wound things and it can reshape things because the moment you intervene and you take military troop there, the other country too will either confront you on that intervention.
We don't even have the resources.
So we don't have the resources. So
all right. Quickly, one sentence should do this.
Yes.
There will be, Ondo State is one of the off-cycle elections, and very soon there will be off-cycle governorship election in that state.
Yes.
Are you throwing your heart into the ring?
I cannot tell you that now.
Why now?
I have to conduct a survey. I'm a scholar. I have to conduct a survey. The survey must tell me that I must contest or I should not contest. We are still at the preliminary stage of drawing the questions for the respondents. So when we conduct the survey and the survey says I should go in, I will go in. If the survey says don't go in, I will sit down at home. The survey must be done in 203 wards, 18 local government, and it must be done by independent person that is not biased, so that we can have a nice result. But for now,
that's open.
I'm in the Senate.
That's open. I will keep tracking you on that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Distinguished. I've really enjoyed this session with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Nice to see you again.
All right, for the past 56 minutes now, we've been here in the studio with Distinguished Senator Jimoh Ibrahim. He's the senator representing Ondo South Senatorial District in the 10th Senate. Really, really interesting session with him. Thank you again, Distinguished.
Thank you.
All right, thank you too for investing your time with us. On behalf of all of us, my name is Gbenga Aruleba. I'll see you around.